Hello, and welcome back to Ashland Fishing. I know it's been a little while since I've done a video, but I figured now's a good time to do it. I've been having a lot of things going on with the back end of stuff here. In the process of expanding, offering some products to my fellow stream fishermen out there. And in this video, I'm going to do an overhaul with this 4500 CS. It was a 1 year only model for the US market. They did make them for the Japan and Europe markets that came in other colors, and I think they made them up until 2015 or 2017 or something. But as far as US market reels go, this is just the only year that they made this, and you can only get it in silver. But this one is outfit for finesse fishing. It has an Avail spool, the Avail level line, everything to lighten it up. As you can see, it doesn't have the factory frame. The factory frame is the heavy duty chrome brass, and I wanted to lighten this up because it weighed like 12 ounces when I first got it. But with this frame and the lighter weight components on the inside, it weighs about 9.5 ounces or so. But I'm going to start off here by removing the handle. This is a Haneda Craft. On my 2500Cs, I like to run the 60 millimeter, but on these bigger ones, because the gears have more torque, I like to run the longer 70 millimeter. And that is measured from stud to stud on there on the handle, not the total length. So the actual total length of this is going to be right around 80 meters. Go ahead and pop all this stuff off here. 1.5 millimeter screwdriver. Easy way to pop these E-clips, just stick it in there, twist, and it pops right off. And these things, I've been doing them for so long. It's everything's from memory, and I can work on them pretty quick. But as you can see in my videos, I tend to do long form. I stink at video editing, so this is what you're getting. That was an Avail star wheel on there. That's a lighter weight component than the brass ones used from the factory, because I wanted to just get this thing down as much as possible. Because the rods I like to run it on 6 to 7 feet, usually about a light to a medium light power. Plenty good for bass fishing, large migratory trout, that kind of thing. As you can see with the Avail spool how shallow this is. This is a 45-30, meaning it's 3 millimeters deep. I do run black brake blocks on it. With when you start to lighten up the spool, you're going to have to adjust the weight of the brake shoes you use. The whole idea is to make it easy to cast. I mean, you can have a spool that spins forever, but if it's not easy to cast, is it actually beneficial? But with this one, I like the black blocks because the spool moves reasonably free. I don't have to thumb it much, and it'll actually go a pretty considerable distance on that end. Especially with these 39 millimeter spools. These Ambassadors, they hold a lot of records as far as casting tournaments go, and just because that larger diameter spool has to rotate less to let out the same amount of line versus something that's smaller diameter, like a 2500C for instance, which is going to have a 30 millimeter diameter spool. Not much going on in here. This is all the OEM stuff except for the drag washers in it. You can see with some of these, this is an early UltraCast style brake plate that has a return spring built into it, or not built in. It catches on the arm right here and goes onto that stud. But newer UltraCast styles, they have the spring integrated with a little detent that's on the inside right here, so it kicks back on this arm when you're cast, or when you go to turn the reel back over. Just go ahead, and I'm going to clean all this stuff in mineral spirits. Something else I like on here, using a Dahlgren washer for the base. It just makes the drag a little smoother, and you can get them. I sell them in my drag kits that you'll see on the Ashland site. Not many places sell them that way. They'll just use carbon, where that base washer just pretty much acts as a spacer and not so much in terms of being a friction surface. And what I'm going to do, last time I did this reel, I used an NLGI1 on the gears. I mean, I like an NLGI1. It's good and smooth, but I tend to go more towards the durability side of stuff. Like, how long is it gonna hold up for? Because personally, I don't really service my own stuff unless it's clear that it needs to be serviced. I know some people are a little different, and they have a tight schedule, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and service that. It's been a year already, let's do it. I mean, honestly, you don't really have to go that much as long as you do the proper precautions. Go ahead and pull this side plate. I'm going to apologize in advance in case I hit the camera mount, because I'm pretty good for that. So if you see it get a little jumpy, that's what I did. Something else I'm going to do, you can see the little E-clip right there. What I found is using a 2mm O-ring, and it only puts pressure on the inner race. And that using the O-ring only works with the Avail cog, or maybe a Valley Hill, but any of the non-OEM ones that are 2-bearing, it's going to work with that. This one, I'll go ahead and pop this E-clip. Put that off to the side for another time. Here's our cog. Go and pull out this, they call it the speed bullet. It's just a bushing that goes in the end there. Now, this part, you can get it with a bearing in it, and yeah, I mean, it's probably best if you're using a surf reel or something, but as far as something like this, that's going to be used more for like close quarters fishing, and you're not throwing out like far beyond 100 yards like the surf guys are, you're just fine with the OEM piece right here. What I like to do is just put a little bit of oil on that where the spool pinion makes contact, because then it gives it a slicker surface to run on. Next thing, I got to pull the level wind. This is an Avail lightweight level wind on here. We got our pawl and the cap. This guy can get off, and this too is an Avail level wind with 2 bearings in it. You can see there's one on that end right here. And then this is nice because with these newer style Avail ones, I think Valley Hill actually they did this with their own for a while, is you could pull this pinion gear off that's right here and pull off this other bearing. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And actually, the screw head on here is a JIS. So if you use a regular Phillips, there's a chance it could cam out on you. So I'm just going to go in here, pull this little screw off, and not lose it. You can see that they use a red thread lock from the factory. It's actually not too hard to break it free. And here's our aluminum worm gear, no bearings on it. So all this stuff, I have my bearings here. Pull this other bearing. I'm gonna have to get the cogwheel bearings, which these are sometimes a pain in the butt to get out of here. You just push in there, pop that one out. And these are all the same size bearings, so in the same type, so it's not going to matter if you mix them up or anything with the Avail parts. I can go and pull the spool bearings. Take out the brake washer. I can reach in there and push that bearing out. Then the other side, something I want to take a look at that I couldn't remember. Yep. See, now this is a flat shim that goes in under the crank side spool bearing. Now, your regular C3, C4, and even the CS, they came with a convex one. Well, the CS reels, this is one of the things that makes them spin better, is having a flat washer right there, because it's not, it doesn't apply any pressure to the inner race of the spool bearing as you tighten the cap on it. I'll set that off to the side. What I'm going to do is run these bearings in some denatured alcohol. Get them all nice and clean. And while these are running, I'll go ahead and take everything else and scrub it up and clean that as well. Those bearings were fairly clean before, so there's not much that I really need to do on that end. Now these 4000 sizes, 45, 4600, they're great candidates to convert into a finesse reel. They're not going to cast as light as something like a 2500C. Your lower limit's going to be in the 2 to 3 gram range. With that said, where you do see the benefits of it is the large diameter spool with the deeper gears that they come with. They're absolute torque monsters. So if you're fishing for big brown or rainbow trout in the river, coho, that kind of thing, this is probably going to be a better tool for the job than a 2500C would be, just because it's a beefier reel. That's my ultrasonic cleaner you hear going in the background. Just going and cleaning this stuff up with mineral spirits. That's my routine. I don't really do ultrasonic cleaners for internal parts because they tend to miss a lot of stuff and you have to go back over it anyways, so might as well just do it by hand the first time. A little bit of dirt in here. I apologize if some of this is out of focus. My phone is not very good at some things with video. Got this cleaned up. What I do is I just wipe everything dry after the mineral spirits, and then whatever's left, it's going to go away all by itself because it evaporates quickly. I do use the odorless stuff, so I'm not sitting down here getting high when everything's going. And it makes pretty quick work of stuff. I'm off camera doing this just so I don't splash anything that I don't need to with the mineral spirits. What I'm going to do this time around too is, on the drag end of things, I'm going to go with a thinner NLGI 0 grease just so I have a better startup. A lot of drag greases like your Cals and your Shimano drag grease are usually NLGI 1 or NLGI 2, which is NLGI 1's consistency of tomato paste and NLGI 2's like peanut butter. And the idea of a drag, especially when you're finesse fishing, is you want as less effort as possible to get that spool turning the second that a fish hits it and starts running. You really don't want to have, if you're, especially because running light line, if you're running like a 4 pound, 6 pound, even an 8 pound leader, it's going to take more effort to get that initial startup going on there. Just going through and scrubbing the pinion gear right now. Get that out of the way, but these things are pretty quick and easy to go through. I mean, I help out a lot of people. I've been doing them for a long time. get my brain picked off, and I'm always happy to help you all out. Looks like there's about 15 minutes to go for the bearings in there. So some parts I'm not gonna be able to install right off the bat, because what I do is blow them out with the air compressor, then I add my oil, which is TSI 321. I like to use that because it makes a thin film and works its way into the pores. It works kind of like the way molybdenum works for automobile engines, where it fills in the pores, leaves a slick surface, so I blow out any excess for the maximum performance. It's real easy with a reel to flood the gears, or flood the bearings, I'm sorry. I mean, they'll work just fine, but it's not going to be at its best potential, because picture it like driving in the rain versus just driving on a wet surface. Instead of driving through puddles and stuff and slowing you down, it's without the puddles there, you can really get going. Just finishing up cleaning the rest of this stuff. Something else I do too as part of my regular services is I check the frame for alignment. With an Ambassador, you can see how the frame uses crimps on there. Well, over the years, those crimps kind of loosen up a little bit, and when they loosen up, it can cause the frame to be a little skewed, and that's the number one performance robber of these reels. If your frame is out of square, no amount of fun parts or anything like that is going to help you. Fortunately for me, I had some frame jigs made from a customer of mine, and they work wonderful. It's usually if people want something like that, they buy them from Japan, but those are aluminum, and I picked Simon Shimomura's brain. He said if you're getting them, get steel. They hold up a lot better. And so I had a customer of mine who's a machinist, and he told him what I needed, gave him some frames to use for templates, and he brought me some jigs. So I have one for a 1500 to 3500 size and one for a 45 to 6500 size. So when I get this all together, before I actually get the frame together, I'll show you exactly how I do it. Okay, now I can start putting the brake plate together. I'm going to use the NLGI2 on there. You don't really need, some people cover the whole brake plate with grease. You can do that, which is fine. That's something that I typically suggest for saltwater fishermen, just because it gives it that added layer of protection. But fishing the freshwater, you don't have to worry about that kind of thing, so you can go get by with much less. And this one I'm just going to go and rub some right here, get a little bit where that little hook is that catches the ratchet wheel, and then some right here. Now remember, grease, you don't need a whole lot. when it's the natural action of this under use is going to distribute it just good enough. You don't need to go crazy or any of that. And here I'll put some for where the pinion yoke's going to slide on. I'll put a little bit down here. We're going to have a little washer that goes at the base. This one I can drop right on. Take a little bit more, put it there, and then some people use oil on these, on the drive shaft post. I just put a very light layer of grease. Oil works, but the problem with oil is that it runs out. Grease is going to stay put until you service it the next time. As I was saying earlier in the video, I like to take more of a hands-off approach. I'd rather be out fishing and not have to worry about it so much. So I do what's necessary to keep it all protected. I can slide this one right here. We'll take our little spring. These are always a pain in the butt one way or another, but this one's actually not bad. Now, as far as I can go until that ultrasonic cleaner stops. Actually, you know what? I'm not. You go ahead and get the rest of this going here. This one I just put a little bit of grease in the collar. That goes in. I can take our position holder. Some people do grease this on top, but you don't really have to. There's enough space on between the position holder and the rest of the assembly there to where you don't really have to do it because it's not an actual friction surface. Okay, and now I can start doing the rest of it. We have our Delrin base washer. Just going to take a little bit of this NLGI 0 and rub it in there so it's going to give a nice and slick surface. Go ahead and drop that on. I can take our drive gear. This is important. You want to put a little bit of grease right here where it contacts the drive shaft. And now, when I grease these, I go very sparingly because if you ever open up some of these things, you'll see that they're over greased and stuff just gets flung everywhere. You don't really need to overdo it because as you turn the handle, it's going to distribute it. If you noticed, I didn't even put any on the pinion gear itself, just because the drive gear is going to work it in there under use. Go ahead and get the rest of that there, and we're good. I can set this drive gear in. All right, we're in business. I'll go ahead and start stacking drag washers up on there. You can see how thin this stuff spreads. That means it's going to have a nice and easy startup, which is exactly what I want. As far as reels go in general, a setup like this would be excellent for river smallmouth, especially. Like where I am, we have a lot of warm water streams in the southern part of the state because they're really low grade. There's a lot of impoundments around them that heat up the water, so really good spots to fish for smallmouth. And something like this is usually my preferred tool of choice. Got one final washer. Get that super thin grease all up in there. Some people do polish the drag discs on these. If you're using a textured drag material like carbon fiber, I don't believe it's going to make that much of a difference. I mean, it's cool to look at a shiny drag disc, but can you look at it while you're fishing? No. How's it going to feel? Marginal at best. So if you want to take the easy way out, just leave it alone. Next what I'm going to do is mineral spirits on a cotton swab. Go inside of here to get any old oil out. And dry it with the other side. Now we have to lubricate that. So what I do is I just put some TSI on a swab. Just remember, this stuff is going to create a thin film in there. So you don't need much. I'll just take this and run it around in here a little bit. And you'll know it's applied just because of the distinctive smell of this stuff. And then the other side, I'll just go ahead and twist it around a few times. That's all done and lubricated. And for the bottom, I'll do the same. Because what I do is I run the Pawl dry in here. Because there's TSIs already all over every surface. There's no real sense in adding more onto it. While I'm at it, I should get the O-ring that I'm going to use for the cogwheel. Look at it here, it's just a little 2mm diameter, 1mm thick. Pretty tough rubber that it's made from. Now with this, I can take my bearing sleeve, set that back in there. Put our side plate back on. And our bridge screws. Get this other one. All right, we got it. Now while we're waiting for the other stuff, we are going to check the frame alignment. I'll show you how that's done. So when we check for a frame that's either in or out of spec, we have a frame jig. So as you can see, there's a pillar here. You can move it between sides. Take this one, and what you're looking for when you set the frame down, you want it to just drop right on. Now if that doesn't drop down to the bottom, that means the frame is out of alignment. What it'll do is, if it's out of alignment, the pillars on the frame are going to catch and it'll stop. So what you do is you push it down all the way, and then you take a little punch over the pillars, and I just use a small ball peen. Just a few taps, check it back and forth. So that side's good. Now we're going to go over to the other side of the frame and turn it around, set it down. This one's just a little bit out of whack here, so what I'm going to do is go through and reseat these rivets a little bit. And we'll take a look and see how it is. Seeing that one. Give it a few more here. So now this is delicate work. You don't want to wail on it or anything because you're going to break stuff. But with this, see, there we go, all the way to the bottom. All squared up, no problem at all. And that's how you reline an Ambassador frame. Very good tool to have, especially if you work on a lot of these things like I do. Especially now with Sweden plant being closed. They're kind of going to be hard to, a lot of people scrap the frame if it's too far bent out of shape. But now they can be repaired. Looks like our cleaner is just finished up, so I'll take my little tweezers here and go fishing in the jar for bearings. I'll go ahead and blow them guys out just to remove any of that alcohol that's left in there. So I got a total of 6 bearings. The ones for the cog, the spool bearings, and for the level wind. Alright, so I got those out of there. I'm off camera right now, but you'll be able to hear me blowing these out. So you got one. These are the spool bearings I'm setting over there. I'll get to these smaller bearings. Now these smaller ones, being that they have shields on them, this is a good route to go blowing them out because you're not leaving anything trapped in there, and the small gaps that are between the shields and the races, stuff will work itself out. Alright, so now what we're going to do, since those bearings are done, we're going to do a spin check on them, make sure they check out. There we go. That's one of the spool bearings, keeps on moving, which is what we want. These are all NMB stainless bearings. I use them in all my builds. They're also OEM for most of Daiwa and Shimano products, regardless if it's a spinning reel or a bait cast reel, budget or high end. Isuzu also uses them, even in their $1,300 TC01 bait cast reel that you can see like on Hedgehog Studio or Digitaka. Make sure these ones. Yep, that one. It's hard to see on camera, but when I put my finger on it, I can feel it stop. Yep, that's good. Perfect. So now the next step that I'm going to do, I'm going to take these, put a drop of oil on them, or TSI. Got a little bit there, so we're going to spin it to distribute. Now, what you're going to notice is once you put oil on these, they don't spin nearly as well as they do dry. And they're never going to spin as well as they do dry. It's simple physics. You get a little fluid in there, or a little oil in this case, and what I'm going to do to facilitate that is blow out the excess oil. So I'm just going in here right now because when I distribute this stuff around, it's getting on them bearing races and cages, which is what you want to have lubricated. That's the friction surface of the bearing itself. I see a lot of people skip steps like this. If you don't have an air compressor, you can just use some canned air like you would for a PC or something. Take this one, add a drop here. Watch now. You can see how it doesn't spin as good just because that lubrication's in there now. The TSI, very little goes a long way. That's why we just add a drop, spin it around. Now we know it's distributed in there. Now we're going back over to the air compressor to blow out any excess. I know you can't see this on camera just because of where my compressor is, but when I hit it, you'll see the leftovers mist out of there. Got one. Two. These smaller bearings, you really got to hit them with a little more air. Just because they're small and with the shields on. Because NMB, they do ship these things greased. You can mess around with pulling the shields off. I usually don't try. These things are too little for that. There we go. So the first things first, I'm going to take and put that spool cap back on here. And we'll drop a TSI on there. Not that this part rotates, but why not? Go ahead and drop it in. And take our cap. Now, we're going to put some bearings into the cog. Now remember, we're going to take and put that O-ring on here. This can be a little bit of a pain, but it's worth it. There we go. And see how that secures it? You have the little O-ring on there. It really takes up the space and spins pretty good. Alright, now we can assemble the level wind back up. Go ahead and add a bearing in here. And we have our little bearing collar right here. So this is going to go like so. And we take our screw, or our little spur gear that goes on there. If you notice, it's got like a square shape on it, just like the end of the worm gear does. Go ahead and put that on there. This is the fun part. Get this little teeny tiny screw on. Take our JIS driver. Go ahead and screw that on, and there we go. There's our worm gear. What else I'm going to do, while I got the worm gear, I'm just going to take and put some TSI up in here, all around everything. and head back over to their compressor, because you don't need a whole lot of that stuff. It's just making a slick surface. So I'm just going to go ahead and blow off the excess. We got that, and I can take this other bearing and stick it in the end here. And now that we have put TSI on everything, we don't really got to do a whole lot with the pawl and all that stuff. It's already going to be lubricated. One mistake a lot of people make with TSI is using it like as if it were a regular old oil, which it's not. So here we go, and then we got our spins pretty good. That's what we want, nice and easy. I could take our cog and other side plate and set that on there now. All right, now put in the spool bearings. We're almost done. Go ahead and get that thrust washer in there. Get one bearing in, then we'll take our brake washer, put this guy in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see how it spins out the brake blocks first. Let's see how the spool is. Pretty good. Take a little bit of grease, put that on here and here on the threads. Now something I do, if this were a saltwater reel, which I do get plenty of, even though I'm nowhere near any salt water. But there's a lot of precautions I take for guys that are going to use these in the salt. So if you notice like some areas that I may not have greased, it's just because it's a freshwater reel, and pretty meticulous about maintaining my stuff. Go ahead and get that handle nut on there. Put this guy in. Sorry, I bumped the camera. All right, let's make sure the spool is centered in the frame, which it's going to have to go, looks like it's going to have to go a little bit. There we go, and then I can tighten this one until there's no slop in it. Wow, first try. And then here's the index ring with that tab. You rotate it and line it up with the 0. And that's how you know how much spool tension you have applied if you have to add some. Oh yeah, definitely that thicker grease on the gears really gave it a nice connected feel. Let's see what it does now. Not bad. And now what I like to do, the way I know that I have enough braking power or too much, is with a centrifugal brake, especially one like this that has a synchronized level wind, as long as that line guide goes back and forth four to 6 times, that's how I know I'm in the sweet spot. Now that's just because of my own personal casting style. Other people might like it a little more free, some people might want it a little less free. But for the way I fish, it's pretty spot on. Go ahead and tighten these guys up, and then we're gonna do a spin test with the brake blocks engaged. Now remember too, when you first redo a reel like that, it's not gonna be at its max performance until after you use it for a little bit. All that grease and oil, it's gotta work its way in there, especially after it's been fully stripped off, so all those surfaces are gonna be redone in the process, and you'll see it wake up over time. But let's see if I get my 4 to 6 trips with the level wind. One. Oh. Do I have too much spool tension? Yep, I do. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I got a little bit, not enough there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll call it done, because as this thing wears in, especially these new lubricants that I put in there, not really new but fresh, they'll settle in, it'll get better. It's like, I know I've coached some people and they're like, yeah, I've used the reel a little bit and it's gotten a little bit louder, and that's when I have to tell them, like, hey, once that stuff works its way in there, things loosen up a little bit, but they also perform better at the same time. So you're just going to be chasing the dragon if you're looking for something that's completely silent or something that's going to move really good. It's just the nature of these things. No matter what, you have to abide by the laws of physics. But that was a full overhaul of a 1994 4500 CS full Avail tune. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have any questions, I mean, you know how to get a hold of me. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram. You can visit my website, www.ashland-fishing.com. My blog, the Shop Talk area is pretty popular lately. Just poke around, have a look. But anyways, thanks for watching.